Welcome back to the program, everyone. My name is Dr. Dan. I'm excited for today's topic because we're going to talk about a little bit of an interesting area and a growing area in terms of nutrition research called chrononutrition. But before we dive into it, hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss another episode and you're always up to date on my latest content. So let's talk about time-restricted feeding. Now, technically, this is a form of intermittent fasting. The dietary regimen where skipping breakfast is now cool because of millennials. That's right. That is my generation that we did that. And for those of you that don't know what intermittent fasting is, basically it's an alternating between fasting and eating period. So we have a fasting period that we try to do a little bit longer, and then we consume all of our calories within a given feeding period or area. Hence intermittent fasting, or it could be intermittent eating, but I think the latter doesn't sound quite as cool, and my generation definitely holds being cool in a very high regard. Now, there's about 1 million different approaches out there, and different social media coaches will tell you different things, but one of the most common methods that are peddled on the internet is the 16 and 8 method. Now, what's happening with the 16 and 8 method here is that essentially you're fasting for a 16-hour period, and then you're eating and consuming all of your daily calories within an 8-hour window. And generally this involves, skipping breakfast, not eating until 12, or some gurus will say, go until 4, go until 6. Basically, go as late as you possibly can in the day until you essentially want to put an ice pick through your eye because you're so starving and so hungry, and end up overeating and over-consuming. The downside of intermittent fasting. And this 16 and 8 version is basically a version or a form of TRF, or time-restricted feeding. Now, I'm certainly not opposed to any particular diet plan or strategy. My philosophy is all about finding what ultimately works for you, and that means it has to be something that is sustainable and something that you actually enjoy. And if intermittent fasting or whatever dietary regimen you find works for you, that's awesome. That's amazing. I won't say anything about it. In fact, I will go and catch a chicken and be out of the way. But one other thing that I do look at with my patients is I want to know about the health status of what you're doing and how it's going to potentially affect you in the long term. And so the version of the 16 and 8 or time-restricted feeding that I mentioned above, or late TRF they sometimes call it, may actually be doing more harm than good based on a study that I'm about to tell you about. So Sutton and friends did this amazing little study where they basically looked at having all of your calories earlier in the day, so early time-restricted feeding. And essentially what happened is you would finish eating sometime in the afternoon, maybe the late afternoon, and then you would fast from that point in time until the following morning. Now, the reason why they did this is they were trying to align a human's eating patterns with the human's natural circadian rhythm and system. You see, our circadian system, or our master clock, if you will upregulate and downregulate our metabolism throughout the day. And our metabolism is our ability to metabolize sugars, fats, all the things that are coming into our diet. And what we know from the data is that if we go earlier in the day, we seem to be better able to handle the nutrients that are coming into our system versus later in the day. And what we have found actually from the research is that individuals that do late TRF, or late time restricted feeding, when they have their calories beyond 4 p.m. in the afternoon, what essentially happens there is that we actually see increases in blood sugar, blood pressure, and blood lipid levels. Now, there's no hard outcomes to say that if you eat later in the day, you're going to have a heart attack, but all of those things over a long period of time may have negative outcomes for your health. And certainly in the more extreme example of shift workers who are eating overnight when a human body is supposed to be sleeping, have been shown to have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and other comorbidities. So what Sutton and friends did was a 5-week randomized crossover isocaloric eucaloric controlled feeding trial. Wow, that took me a lot to memorize, and I finally got it. And what they did is they did the study in men who have pre-diabetes, or men who have almost developed diabetes. And basically they took these men and they split them into 2 groups and randomly assigned them to these 2 groups. And essentially the first group was assigned to an early TRF schedule. So what's happened there is that their eating window was 6 hours long, and they basically had to finish all of their food by 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And then in the other group, they were assigned to a 12-hour eating schedule and pretty much just ate their calories and ate all of their food over that 12-hour period with really no time restrictions, but still kind of in the normal daytime, if you will. Essentially what the average human already does on a day-to-day basis. Now, the participants in the study were only allowed to eat food that was provided by the study staff, and they had to be watched by the study staff while they were eating. So that's the controlled feeding trial aspect of it. And another big point here is that the study staff provided the individuals with enough food in order to maintain their weight. Now, the reason why they did this is because they wanted individuals to maintain their weight. They didn't want to see any weight loss happen, because if weight loss did occur, it would be difficult to say, well, did we see benefits because of the weight loss, or did we see benefits because of the early TRF scheduling? So we wanted to eliminate that confounder altogether. So they had everybody eat their maintenance calories to maintain their weight. Now, this trial only included 8 men, which kind of makes sense in the sense that you're providing an individual all of their food for a 5-week period, actually a 10-week period technically. As well, they had to be watched while they were eating their food, so not only is that going to be expensive, but it's also going to be a royal pain in the ass. And using myself as an example, my grocery bill per month is anywhere from $400 to $500 to maintain my weight. That's not if I'm trying to gain muscle mass or training extra hard. So that's going to add up over a period of time. And yes, I am aware that I eat enough for a small family. So what Sutton and friends found after the study was completed and all individuals had done the early time restricted feeding schedule, what had happened is that there was an increase in insulin sensitivity, so their body became more responsive to insulin. Their pancreas actually was able to produce more insulin in order to help and manage blood sugar levels. There was a reduction in blood pressure. There was an improvement in oxidative stress. As well, what they found is the individuals that had all of their calories earlier in the day actually had a decrease in their appetite over later in the night. Now, while there was changes in terms of insulin sensitivity and insulin production, there was actually no reduction in blood sugar seen. If the study would have gone longer, would we have seen that? Maybe. There was also no changes in cholesterol, so there was no increase in the good cholesterol and no decrease in the bad cholesterol. Again, if the study would have gone longer, maybe we would have started to see those numbers shift. And guess what? Nobody lost weight. So again, as much as the social media gurus will tell you that intermittent fasting has some special weight loss properties, this is another point in the column that says no intermittent fasting has no special properties in terms of weight loss. What needs to happen for you to lose weight is you need to be in a calorie deficit. Full stop. That is what needs to happen. It's not the diet, it's not the carbs, it's not the fat. So as I said, the study was only 5 weeks long, and if it had gone longer, maybe we would have seen some extra benefits and stuff like that. However, adherence and sustainability would be the 2 biggest factors that would ultimately lead to people not staying on this long term. And the reason for the struggle with adherence and consistency, and even the authors pointed this out, is that having all of your food before 3 p.m. or having your dinner at 3 p.m. really isn't conducive to normal day-to-day life. And if you're doing family bonding time over dinner, when people normally have dinner, it's about 6 or 7 p.m. As well, if you're trying to have a romantic date night with your partner, 3 p.m. dinner really isn't getting the gears going, if you will. Although getting dinner at 3 p.m., you might even beat out most of the seniors that are going for the early bird special, and you might get the early bird special. However, I don't foresee too many happy endings happening after a 3 p.m. romantic dinner, if it is. But all kidding aside, what can we actually do with this information? So, as the normal disclaimer is, whenever we look at science, we ultimately need more data to answer more questions. But this study does reinforce the fact that our body is better able to metabolize and handle nutrients coming into our system earlier in the day. So we should probably consider about having breakfast. I know a number of people don't like eating breakfast, but I'm a big proponent of it, and there is evidence to show that eating breakfast can help with weight loss and weight management, or at very least trying to have more of our calories earlier in the day. As well, we're not entirely sure if the same result would be seen if we extended that 6-hour eating window. So instead of 3 p.m., we went to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., maybe 6 p.m. Would we still get a similar benefit overall in the greater picture of things? Could we have dinner, a happy ending, and the health benefits as well? Maybe. It is possible. More data is needed, but it sounds like pretty much a win-win to me. So in conclusion, I'm not saying you need to jump and start eating breakfast right away, or that you need to stop eating all of your food at a certain time point in the evening. More data is needed, but it might be something to start considering and seeing if you can ultimately incorporate it in your day-to-day life. And if for some reason you are still hell-bent on this intermittent fasting, I would recommend you try having your calories earlier in the day and not trying to be cool and skipping breakfast. And I'm not sure if you did notice, but the individuals that did the early time restricted feeding, so had their calories earlier in the day, did report that they had a decreased level of appetite in the evening, which may lead to less consumption and overconsumption in the evening and ultimately help with weight loss. And until next time, my friends, don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss another video that comes out. We're trying to put them out every single week. We're doing the best that we can there. As well, if you have any questions, comments, drop them down below. And of course, if you ever need any support in your lifestyle management, changing your dietary patterns, check us out at healthcareevolve.ca, book a free consult with myself, and we can sit down and chat if you'd be a good fit for our program or not. And finally, check me out on all my other channels at The Official Dr. Dan. And yeah, we'll talk to you later.